if you're a healthcare professional, and I will tease healthcare professionals until the end of earth, when you went to professional school, how many business classes did you take? Zero. And that's where they're going to rely on us. They are experts in their field, but they're going to look back to the attorneys and CPAs to help them stay compliant with the items they're not familiar with.
Hello! This is CPA Career Path Podcast with Rosey Flaherty, CPA MSA, where we dive into thrilling journeys in the world of accounting. Chris, thank you so much for being on my podcast today.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. We have Chris Papin, is a thought leader and business and trusted advisor in our podcast today. Chris, before we start, dive into your CPA journey. Can you introduce a little bit more about yourself to the audience?
Yeah, so I happen to do a lot of things, but it all boils down to me representing small businesses and small business owners. I carry multiple licenses, and we're able to help people through their journey, whether it's startup, operations, minimizing taxes, making decisions, selling a business, all kinds of fun stuff that we get to do with those small businesses, but also in their personal life, estate planning, retirement planning, and helping the small business owner as well.
Wow, that sounds like a lot, Chris. We will have a lot to ask you during this discussion then.
I'm looking forward to it. Let's get at it.
Yep. And let's go from the beginning, Chris. When you start in college, what motivates you or who motivates you to start with the accounting major and then become a CPA later?
So my journey in college was kind of driven by family. Mom and dad are entrepreneurs. My brother inherited my father's business. He was an accounting major. So I had some experience around these different things, and kind of through school recognized I'm pretty good at numbers. During my college career, there was a particular class where we were skipping sections in the book. And I kept asking the professor, why are we skipping the good stuff? And he so kindly explained how most of that was legal work handled by attorneys. It was not the practice of accounting necessarily. So he was helping me draw a distinction. And of course, I didn't know what I didn't know at the time. And I thought, well, that's dumb. Why can't you do this in one place? So fast forward, finish accounting, get a CPA license, go to law school, sit for the CPA exam during law school, get all of the credentialing in place. And then I start to recognize in this journey, while I've been working for a Fortune 500 company, my passion, my joy, and kind of what I know to do is all based on small business. And I'm incredibly grateful to the team and my corporate experience. Loved every minute of being there, but quickly recognized, hey, what I know and what I want to go do is something different. So that's what I went and did.
That's pretty impressive that you know what you want or what you like, because I know a lot of people struggle a little bit to figure out their own path, and some people takes a long time to figure it out. So I always feel amazed for people who know exactly what they want in early career stage and at early age as well. It saves you so much time. Oh my God, so much time, so much stress, and you just fly on your career because you know exactly what you want. And so and also you got the CPA license, and then you also went to law school. Wow, that's a lot, Chris. I have no idea why is that just because of what the professor said? That's why you decide to be a lawyer as well?
Some of it is the experience from the professor. Some of it was just personal desire, recognizing I wanted to further my career. Everybody that I knew that was in a legal field had some version of success, even though they may not have been a traditional lawyer. But probably the truth of the matter was, I had a good, strong family base supporting me and encouraging me to achieve my objectives sooner rather than later. And then I was young enough and dumb enough to go through and say, yeah, let's take the CPA exam during law school. I literally didn't know any better. I would not recommend someone do that today. Worked out great. Passed all the sections first try. No problems. Passed the bar exam first try. No problems. But in the moment, I didn't really realize how unique and special that was. It was just what I was supposed to do. So that's what I went and did.
Well, I don't know how that's considered to be dumb, because in order to go through all of that, you must be a God, so smart to do all of that.
Thank you.
It seems like after you graduate, your first job is in corporate tax. So you didn't jump right in public accounting, in audit or tax like typical path. So is that because of the family influence as well, or what made you decide to just go straight to private accounting or industry?
Honestly, opportunity. I was approached by a friend's mom who was the recruiter for the company and said, "Hey, we're going through an internship process," and that's how I got my foot in the door. And was fortunate enough to submit the resume, go through the process, be selected. And then while I was in law school, I was working with this company in kind of different capacities, but primarily focusing on tax. And it was a wonderful opportunity because that's where there was an interest. I recognized during education, audit probably was not my thing. And still today, if I can stay as far away from audits, I will. When clients grow up, is the way I say it, and need attestation work, they outgrow my firm, and we refer them to firms that we work with that do that kind of work. So it was great from an experience standpoint. It was a brilliant opportunity because the people that I was with were amazing and mentored me and showed me a lot about how to be a good professional, both, personal and in business. But the skill sets attributed directly back to what I do today, it just happened to be large numbers for one corporation rather than maybe smaller numbers for multiple business owners. So there's a lot of overlap. And I know particularly like when I was in school, it's audit, tax, or industry is kind of the way people think about it. And there's a place for people to be in all of those different areas. And then if you think inside of particularly where tax and accounting is today, a lot of that is technology. It's systems, softwares, security protocols. So, you can become an accounting specialist that really doesn't do the numbers, debits, and credits. And I don't think people see that when they hear, let's go to school to be an accountant. So there's a beauty inside of particularly the corporate environment. I got to see lots of different versions of the way things operated with the role that I played. There was a merger, and that was kind of a realization that, sometimes when the corporation's bigger than you are, you don't always control your own destiny. Had wonderful opportunities to leave my hometown, but I didn't want to leave my hometown. So there was a natural life cycle to my role in corporate accounting. And that just happened to kind of coincide with when I was finishing law school, which allowed me to transition to kind of the second phase of the career.
That's interesting that you mentioned about tax, audit, or industry, because a lot of people who are new to this career, all they know is just public or private. If you do tax, it means they just assume that, I believe a lot of people just assume that when you do tax, you do in public. So in your case, you did tax, but you did in private in the industry as well. So instead of working on multiple tax for multiple clients, you just focusing on only did one tax for one specific client, right?
I mean, the reality in a Fortune 500 company is there's hundreds of entities. So, as you go through and think about just corporate organizational structures, I say it's one, and at the end of the day, it was one publicly traded company. But that's where I say some of the disciplines are the same. But I'm right with you in the sense of what I think maybe like a high school senior is told about what accounting might be, and then what a college senior may have a perspective about what an accounting job might turn out to be, and then someone that's in the industry, those are vastly different perspectives. And you can get as deep and as specialized or as broad as you want to in this industry, working with lots of different types of businesses. I know folks that exclusively focus on healthcare because they had some sort of healthcare background or had family members that were doctors and nurses, but they're still an accountant, but they've got to be able to speak medicine too. So it's a soft, kind of think of it as like a very soft clay that you can kind of mold. It's always clay. It's always going to be the accounting industry, but you can make it into what you want if you pay attention to your career paths.
That's true. That's true. And then after you work for 3 years as in corporate tax, you work as associate Anthony. But it seems like even yes, you work at the lawyer firm or company, but you still do something related to tax as well, like tax planning, bookkeeping, preparation, payroll services. Can you describe more about what did you do in there for almost like 8 years, 7 years, and 6 months?
So the cliff notes on this is I shopped a lot of different places, and there were very few that were both kind of lawyers and attorneys, or lawyers and CPAs that played both roles. And the firm that I went to, I am forever grateful to, because they showed me different ways that you can play on both sides of the fence, if you will. So a natural life cycle is we might have a new business that creates an LLC. That's legal work. They might need to buy assets and acquire different, say, vendor contracts or employee contracts, all legal work. Well, the law firm would help them get started, and then they too had an accounting firm all under one roof. But then there's a natural transition to, once the business is up and running, who's going to help them account for their activities and report those activities. So bookkeeping, payroll, tax returns, there's all kinds of compliance and maintenance that goes along with law activities like renewing annual certificates, reviewing leases, negotiating contracts, buying and selling assets. So it's particularly in small business, it's stuff that goes on all day, every day in both arenas. And many CPAs do a lot of this consulting right up until they are required to have a license to practice law. And then they either have a strategic partner or you've got to find a different lawyer to go do it. So it kind of personified that moment where I was like, this is dumb. Why can't one person do two things? But I was able to see it differently through the eyes of that firm, and helped me kind of establish my vision to where I am today.
So you did both tax and also legal services under the same roof. So it's like full house that they can just come, like full house, they just one stop shop. And then for full house, they can get all the services in one place.
Yes. And that's a huge benefit for a lot of reasons. But the one we hear out of our clients the most is, if you hire an attorney to do specific things, they always say, check with your CPA on the financial components. And then the CPAs always say, check with your lawyer about the legal components. And of course, sometimes I'm one role. I might just be a CPA for certain clients or just the lawyer for certain clients. But many of them recognize, especially in today's fast-paced world, getting on two different firms' calendars, getting that information to flow, getting everybody on the same page can sometimes be very painful. So you're absolutely right in that one-stop shop. That's very powerful because there's just a natural life cycle, and it's not hurry up, okay, switch firms, hurry up, okay, switch firms. We can do literally anything from start to finish for most small business and small business owners.
So in those 7 or 8 years, I'm just curious, what did you learn the most during that time?
I think the two pieces that I learned the most of, law school does a really good job preparing you to understand the law and what are, the different pleadings that are required and how to go to the courthouse and what is the rules of the courthouse. But they don't teach you how to interact with the judge, how to interact with other folks. Similar to audit, I never had a passion for litigation, but I also recognized I need to get experience. So when I was at this firm, I was able to kind of see those things through experienced attorneys, gain their wisdom, but more importantly, understand the real life mechanics of what goes on. Then secondarily, I think there is a soft side to representing clients. And an easy way for me to say this is, everybody's familiar with professional ethics rules, and you have a fiduciary duty to make sure that your client doesn't do something wrong. Okay, that's easy to say. if, for example, a client is maybe an American immigrant, they've come from somewhere else, they don't necessarily know the banking system in the United States. Maybe they don't understand that a business account and a personal account need to be separated for whatever reason. There are subtle differences, and I use the cultural element there because I think it illustrates a really good point of how things work in, say, Mexico or Germany or India are going to be very different than the way they work here. But the reality is if you're a healthcare professional, and I will tease healthcare professionals until the end of earth, when you went to professional school, how many business classes did you take? 0. And that's where they're going to rely on us. They are experts in their field, but they're going to look back to the attorneys and CPAs to help them stay compliant with the items they're not familiar with. So there's a bridge that you have to cross, and I can't speak technical speak to the client. Just like when a doctor comes in and tells you the actual definition of your disease, and you're like, I don't know what that is. And like, oh, well, that's a sunburn. And you laugh
That's
and you're
so
going, oh,
true.
that's no big deal. But you've got to learn that art of communicating and advancing goals with clients. What I like to say all the time is I'm actually translating. And it's not like I'm translating English to Spanish or something along those lines, but I'm taking layman's terms and hearing what people are trying to achieve, translating them into the compliant ways to achieve those goals. So I serve as a translator all day, every day. And because I'm an attorney, I say no to everybody first. That's always a fun running joke. The attorneys always get in the way of everything, but there's a reason for it. So what I've learned to say is, no, you can't do it like that, but give me some time. I'll build you the path. And then you can kind of help people understand if you do things in a certain sequence that is permissible under US law, that will keep you out of jail or keep you from breaching a contract or maybe accidentally making mistakes that can be significant financial mistakes over the years.
Wow, Chris, it sounds like risky, scary at the same time. Because you just told me that we just say no, but I can build you the path to do it. Was like, wow, it means it's not a no. It means just a temporary no only, but it will be a yes later. But as long as you follow my path, I can help you to get what you want.
And it's hard sometimes. The easy one for me to pick on, especially in kind of a CPA world, is you have 1099 contractors and you have W-2 employees. And a lot of folks will hear this and they know right where I'm going. But what clients will say is, I have a contract employee. No, you don't. You've got one or the other. That's the way the law works. We've agreed I'm just going to pay them as a 1099. No, it's not by contract. It is by job description, duty, and oversight of the employer. The Department of Labor will beg to differ. So those are why you have to sometimes lead with, no, you cannot pay your administrative assistant as a 1099 unless it's an outsourced administrative assistant business. Oh, no, they're in my office. Guess what? They're a W-2. So there's a lot of things like that you just have to teach people how to work your way through. But I don't want to scare people away, and I don't want to create this like weird boundary of scope, but scope matters. Like, what is my job description? What do you want me to specifically do? If you hired me to file a tax return for the U.S. return and say, Kansas, and you have a filing requirement in Missouri, what do we do? How do you handle that? I can't just sweep it under the rug and say I wasn't hired to do that. I have to make sure the client understands why. And there's that translation game again, because Kansas City sits in both states. And depending on where you do work, you may have to report to both states. So it depends, another attorney joke. But these are those beautiful, beautiful moments where both the attorney and CPA can sit down and advise one client on two things at the same time.
So it seems like you are focusing on teaching, educating clients, at the same time providing services to the clients as well. So that's very important, because even like we are just CPAs only, a lot of time when we work with a client, we have to educate them how to, for example, how do we do this way? why do we need to pay PTE? What the benefits of PTE? Also, educate them if we have new clients transfer from another CPA firm to our CPA firm. We wanted to educate them how to work with us as well. How we want them to deliver the BPC items. Oh, by the way, people who don't know what is BPC is, provided by client documents. So we say a lot BPC items, BPC documents. And so, yes, I absolutely agree with you that teaching clients, educating clients is like a significant job as well, not just delivering the services only. And I think a lot of clients, they decide to stay with CPA firms just because they feel like that connection, they feel like that understanding between the client and also the CPA firm as well. But I'm just wondering, Chris, because you in the both sides, you like, I'm a CPA, I'm also a lawyer. You can come both to me. How do people normally react when they come to you and say, oh, hey, I need to talk to a lawyer, and you, oh, I'm a lawyer as well, you can talk to me. Or like, hey, I need to talk to the CPA. Guess what? I'm a CPA as well. So I'm just curious, like what the reactions that they normally have when they see that, wow, you are a lawyer as well. Like, wow, you're a CPA as well.
There's probably 80% of the time I am asked to address a specific need for either the CPA firm or the law firm. And the easy one for me to illustrate are new business startups. Usually there's hey, I need to start an LLC. I don't know how. Can you help me? And then during that conversation, we ask questions about tax status. How do you want to be taxed? Has anybody had this conversation? Most of the time, people don't even know what I'm talking about. So it's a wonderful opportunity to say, do you have a CPA or a tax professional? Most of the time the answer is, oh, well, I haven't figured that out yet. So we've kind of built the packaging so that you can start your business, be legally compliant, have some sort of threshold analysis to figure out tax elections so that people can be tax efficient, enter into our CPA firm, and just like you're describing, and I'm kind of giggling as you're talking about PBC documentation, because every client's business is unique and nobody's ever done it like this before. And we put it on one of 4 tax forms: a disregarded entity, a partnership, an S Corp, or a C Corp. So I'm going to pop all of our clients' balloons out there. Guys, you're so unique. You are one of 4 things. Provided by client documentation does not follow that template. So you have to teach them this is important. And another thing that you said inside of here, that institutional knowledge that you build. I'm sure you've got clients like this, but we've got, some that have maybe smaller side businesses where they do their own accounting. And they're like, oh, I made $10,000 in revenue and I had $8,000 in expenses. Please put that on a tax return. You're like, kind of need the detail on the expenses, friends. But they don't know. And that's the beauty of being able to be in this role. So I say all of that to bring it back to the point of frequently I'm asked to play one role or the other. But as I start talking to folks and as we start educating folks about the different options and potentially helping them inside of the different firms, they recognize that I have a unique skill set. A lot of times we inherit clients from other professionals who maybe aren't as proactive on the planning side. They just want to file the tax return and don't want to do any planning. Or more realistically, the client didn't know to ask for planning and they're frustrated that they weren't getting planning services. But I think all of that, just the better the relationship you can develop, the more you can kind of step into the client's shoes and help them achieve objectives. And oftentimes, it's not about wins or losses or dollars saved. It's about having the clarity to make a decision. And that's really where the power of what I do today, being a trusted advisor, lies, is giving clients enough information. They understand that if they buy a new piece of equipment, there are tax savings that come with that. They're sophisticated enough clients. The question is should I spend the money now? Do economic conditions justify taking on a loan? Interest rates are higher than they've been in the past. The decision-making process is different there. So reasoning through those things, and just like you illustrated, having some knowledge over the years about how they might behave if they made a bad decision, you can kind of help steer them away from some of that stuff.
Yep, you mentioned a lot about client communication. I know a lot of young professionals, they are kind of like new, or like if you are early in your career, you will not have a lot of opportunities to communicate with the client if you work at a bigger firm. If you work at a smaller
Yeah.
firm, you will have a sooner opportunity to communicate with the client. Since you seems to be an expert in talking to the clients, can you give the audience some tips and advice how to communicate with the client, how to drive the conversation, and how to maintain the relationship with the client?
Okay, I will answer this question, but it brings up a terrible dad joke. But
I'm
what do
ready
you
for
get
that.
when you cross an airplane with an accountant? You get a boring 737, right? I think that's the perspective that clients have of accountants. And the reason I lead with this is, especially if you're a young professional, there's an uncertainty and a fear from speaking to a client because there's fear of being wrong or making a wrong assumption. And the sooner a young professional can realize the art of being uncertain, but having that communication at the same time and not being afraid to apologize and say, I'm sorry, I misunderstood, or I'll have to get back to you. You do not have to have the answer on the spot. The sooner you can master that craft, the sooner you can get in front of clients and practice this communication piece. As I've worked with younger professionals and even senior professionals for that matter, folks that are compliance based, kind of the joke is if the client would get out of the way, I can just do my work. You need the client. They've got to run their business. They have to supply you the information. What do you mean get the client out of the way? So you've got to figure out ways to work together. And there's no other way than communication to do it. And one of the easiest things to bridge this gap is to read financial statements to clients. A junior accountant can look at January, February, and March, like a first quarter, month by month financial, and speak to maybe the revenue trends that are going on. They know how to do that. They've been very well trained in school to do that. Do not take for granted that a client does or does not know that, because many clients will say, that's what I thought, but I wasn't sure. They want the reassurance from the professional. And I think it's a beautiful opportunity, especially for the younger accountants, to begin that conversation. Now, what's everybody's fear? The client says, well, what does that mean? And you have to have an answer. You can say, I don't know. Let me get with the senior partner and have the conversation with them, and we'll get back to you. That is a great answer for being a young person. Then follow up. Do not drop that ball, because if you don't follow up, they'll never talk to you again. So small touches and do the things you know. One of the largest clients at my old firm was known for being difficult. And it's not because he was difficult. It was because he knew the tax and accounting information as well as some of the younger folks did. So if you made a misstep, he would challenge you, and it was his way of mentoring folks, because he had been with the firm for years, still with the old firm today. He was actually trying to help people, and people didn't realize it. They were scared to make the mistake. And, I'm reiterating, accountants are perceived as, dorky pocket protectors that are crunching numbers in the corner, and they're not. But clients are just as scared and afraid because they don't know our side either, and we've got to come together in the middle and meet to have the conversation. And if you'll do that, probably that's a life lesson on all things. We need to come together in the middle and meet and have a conversation, right? You don't have to agree, but in tax and accounting, debits and credits are debits and credits. If it's meals and entertainment, there's one, maybe two ways to treat that. That's it. GAAP or tax code will tell you what to do. Just know that stuff and move forward. It's not an agree or disagree conversation.
I like it. That's very true. I absolutely agree with everything you just said. And it could be scary at the beginning, but it will be
Oh, yeah.
fine. The first time is always tough. But the second time you feel like, it's not that bad. Third time, that's a lot easier. And then here you are, many conversations with the clients later, and you feel like that's a piece of cake. Not really at all. That's the thing that a lot of people who think that, as your dad joke, accountants are boring. But if we are boring, how can we communicate with the clients? How can we maintain the conversation? How can we keep the relationship? What do we do with all the networking events? Like a lot of things going on out there.
Add to this, accountants sit at the crossroads of all business types, all financial transactions, all credit cards, all banks, all Bitcoin, there's like this unique set of information that you're not going to get in other industries. But yet sometimes I think accountants' personalities maybe think they're less than, or they don't have that information. So you're spot on in the sense of, let's go have the conversation, have the confidence, because you see a unique set of information.